Hello, everyone. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson College Office of Public Relations, and this is The View from the Hill, the podcast of Lindsey Wilson College. Every week during the academic year, The View from the Hill features conversations with some of the people who help create the dynamic living, learning environment that serves the educational needs of every Lindsey Wilson student every day. In this 10th edition of the 2025 View from the Hill podcast, we're going to visit with December 2024 graduate Kylie Jackson. Kylie will talk about the connection between the tortured poets of Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Taylor Swift. Lindsey Wilson College will be well represented when this year's annual meeting of Sigma Tau Delta, the International English Honor Society, holds its 2025 convention in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A total of 10 Blue Raiders of faculty, staff, and a graduate are taking part in the convention, including December 2024 graduate Kylie Jackson, a 2021 graduate of Greene County High School. Kylie finished up her Lindsey Wilson career a semester early. She was the featured undergraduate student speaker at last winter's commencement weekend, and next fall, she'll head off to law school. But before that, Kylie will present a paper titled Paradise and the Societal Complications of Ruby at the National Meeting of Sigma Tau Delta. Her paper explores Nobel laureate Toni Morrison's landmark 1998 novel Paradise. Kylie's senior thesis also attracted a lot of attention and praise from her Lindsey Wilson professors. In that paper, Kylie tied the pop singer Taylor Swift with the 19th century poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Specifically, Kylie connected the dots between Swift's song The Albatross, which appeared on her 2024 double album The Tortured Poets Department, with Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, first published in 1798. An albatross is central to Coleridge's famous verse. And as Kylie explains, in their day, the Romantic poets were as big as Taylor Swift.
So the Romantics were part of the Romanticism literary movement, which occurred as a reaction to the Industrial Revolution and the Enlightenment. It's important to note that it was not in direct opposition to the ideas of both, but more so kind of a refusal to conform or completely accept, kind of an emphasis on reason and scientific inquiries. It's more so, Romanticism is more so an exploration of the individual, and it really emphasizes emotion and connection with nature, that sort of thing.
And Samuel Taylor Coleridge, what was his part or his role in the Romantic movement?
He was sort of a co-founder of the movement, himself and William Wordsworth. They were the main two guys that really got together and founded Romanticism. And the key difference between the two, they both agreed that it's the poet's job, the author's job, to really convey the message for the reader, and they disagreed on the use of language. Wordsworth really wanted plain, everyday language, and Coleridge didn't necessarily disagree with this, but he thought that creative words should be used. Plain language is okay, but sometimes a plain word can't capture an intense emotion, if that makes sense.
In your paper, you compare Taylor Swift's song The Albatross with Coleridge's poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Before we start talking about those connections there, what is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner about?
It's a very canonical work. Some people used to read it in high school. I did not. I read it in British literature. It's basically, I'm going to give you the very general version, kind of how I interpreted it. So within The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, there's this crazy old man who stops a wedding guest outside of the wedding, and he is like compelled to tell this traumatic narrative of how he went out on sea and there was this horrendous shipwreck and he killed this bird that basically doomed him and his crewmates, and basically he's compelled to share this story because of the extreme guilt and this emotional journey he went on as a result of his own actions. It's a very famous work, and I clearly enjoyed it. I wrote my senior thesis about it, but at the time I read it, I had no clue I would be doing that.
Well, for those who've been living under a rock for the last decade and aren't familiar with Taylor Swift, or maybe they only know know about her passing. Like, what makes Taylor Swift's song a good topic for a college English major to study in the first place?
Well, it's kind of, you and I have talked about this before. I have always I grew up listening to Taylor Swift, and it wasn't until 2020 when she released Folklore during COVID. That album changed my life because it is when I really realized her lyrical genius, and I realized that her ability to allow listeners to really insert themselves within her songs. Once I realized that I could do that, I really opened my eyes to the lyrics in her other songs, and I realized that it was a lot deeper than most people want to realize. She's very popular. She has very catchy songs, catchy music, but there's so much more to it. So that's how I decided when I first listened to the Albatross, I made the connection to the Rime of the Ancient Mariner through a conversation with Dr. Carolyn Steffens. And I decided to write my thesis about that very day. So
Taylor Swift has a song called Albatross. What's that song about? And talk a little bit about that connection you found to a poem that was written toward the end of the 18th century.
So within the Albatross, I can't definitively interpret it for you. And that's kind of what led me to use that song actually. But within the song, there's an unnamed she and I, which she attaches the label of the Albatross to. And immediately tabloids and everybody else was coming out with an article saying, oh, it's about this person, or it's about this event, it's about this. And then that really got me thinking, it's like, well, what if it's about all of these? It could be about each of these and all of these at the same time. And that's because she does not come out and explicitly say that this is what this is about.
Do you think, and again, I jokingly said earlier in obviously a facetious tone, people who don't know who Taylor Swift is, explain who she is. But do you think maybe that part of the reason maybe some folks don't take her seriously is because she is so incredibly popular, so incredibly well known. She's fairly ubiquitous in popular culture. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of depth to her lyrics and what she sings about.
Yeah, I think it's easy to kind of discredit or kind of ignore that because where she is so popular, she also receives a lot of backlash, and it's easier to focus on sort of her dating life or her life choices rather than her lyrics and her words. And that's more so what people like me who read into that sort of thing, that's what we focus on. And it's kind of hard to get others to invest in that whenever there's other interesting things about her going on.
Well, also, I think you have to give her credit in the sense that she has such a broad appeal. There are young kids who like Taylor Swift, and there are professionals, adults who find a lot of meaning in her lyrics. That to me has to be one of the reasons that there is so much depth and the example of why she should be taken seriously, and why you're making the argument that she's an inheritor of the Romantic movement.
Yes, and that's another thing too. I guess I am a little bit biased because I am a Swiftie. There's also an argument that can be made that she kind of exploits romanticism. I'm obviously not going to go down that pathway because I'm a Swiftie, but there's definitely an argument to be made that way too. Either way, she does it well, and so do many other artists, but I especially wanted to focus on Swift because I noticed that not many people have taken that route, and I think that that's a topic that definitely needs some more attention, and so I'm trying to promote my article best I can because I think that this should be talked about.
You think that's because of all the celebrity that surrounds her and the tabloid media coverage that maybe there's a tendency some people have not to look below the surface of her music?
Again, it's like I said, it's easier to talk about her love life or her outfit choice or that sort of thing, because when you really start to dig into the lyrics and you realize you can attach your own life experiences, then next thing you know, you're a fan. And I don't think that many people want to do that necessarily. It's easier to analyze the superficial things. So.
You're listening to the Lindsey Wilson View from the Hill podcast. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. We're chatting with December graduate Kylie Jackson. Kylie is one of 10 Lindsey Wilson folks who are presenting at this year's national meeting of Sigma Tau Delta, the International English Honor Society. On this podcast, Kylie's discussing her excellent senior thesis, which connects Taylor Swift's 2024 song, The Albatross, with Samuel Taylor Coleridge Coleridge's 1798 poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. You can read more about Kylie's work in the news section of the Lindsey Wilson College website. And to get there, point your browser to lindsey.edu/news. As I mentioned, Kylie graduated from Lindsey Wilson with a degree in English, but she didn't start out as a pure English major, nor did she realize that English is an excellent path to law school from Lindsey Wilson.
So when I first came to Lindsey Wilson, I was like many other college students. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my life, and I went through many phases, but ultimately I decided I was going to be an English teacher, and we have a phenomenal education program here, and I'm thankful that I did take some courses. However, I definitely am not meant to be a teacher, and I was kind of stumped because I feel like many people don't understand the English major entirely. They think it's more so like grammar or teaching English, and those are your only options, and that's just not true. And I was talking with my advisor, Rachel Carr, and Dr. Carr, I'm sorry, and she encouraged me. She was like, Kylie, have you ever thought about just an English major? And I was just like those other people I was just telling you about. I was like, well, I don't want to teach, and my grammar's okay, but I'm not passionate about grammar. Why would I want to be an English major? And she was like, no, Kylie, like there are so many options with the English major. And we got to talking, and I told her, I was like, I've always dreamed of going to law school. I kind of doubted myself. I didn't think I was capable of going to law school. And she shut that down immediately. She was like, Kylie, you absolutely can go to law school. If that's what you want to do, you can definitely do that with an English major. And so I did some more research, and English and law go hand in hand. They fit together very well. And so through my courses at Lindsey Wilson, I feel prepared for my journey at law school.
So for those folks who might not understand what's involved with an English major, what are some of the classes that you took as an English major at Lindsey Wilson?
Of course, you actually do have a grammar class. So that's funny that we were talking about that. But it's a lot of critical thinking. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of writing. But the part that I just mentioned, critical thinking, a lot of people don't understand. English is a very philosophy rooted, I feel, discipline, because it dips into a lot of other disciplines is what I'm trying to get at. Modern critical theory absolutely was my most challenging class with Dr. Carolyn Steffens. It's basically philosophy. And that's what I was going to tell you. I almost wrote my senior thesis with my modern critical theory paper because it was already 12 pages. And I was thinking, well, I want to talk about Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. But all that to say, that was definitely my most challenging class. It's a lot of in-class discussion, deep conversations. I would leave class with my brain feeling absolutely cooked. But yeah, it really transformed the way that I learn and the way that I look at the world.
Come back in a little bit to talk a little bit more about the English program here at Lindsey Wilson, but let's go back even farther for you. How did you wind up at Lindsey Wilson College? You grew up in South Central Kentucky. Did you think you'd always be a Lindsey Wilson student, or what's the story behind that?
So actually, no offense, Lindsey Wilson, I love you, but I used to actually always say I will never go to Lindsey Wilson. And that's just simply because although I was born in Georgia, I grew up in, like you said, South Central Kentucky, and it was always in my backyard. My grandpa used to take me up to the health and wellness center, and we would shoot basketball and work out. It just felt too close. But then my senior year of high school, I was playing basketball. I had some other offers, but I was drawn to Lindsey. And it was through basketball, honestly, that I came to Lindsey. Ended up staying for the connections I've made, and especially for the English program.
And you got out in 3.5 years. That's pretty impressive. How did that happen?
Luck, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. It was definitely a mix of scheduling. My advisors helped me a lot, and just hard work and dedication and honestly, shout out to Dr. Carr, because she came to me last semester and was like, Kylie, you need to get one more upper level class or you're not going to graduate this semester. And so it was thanks to her that I graduated early, but it was really just smart scheduling and some dual credit courses that I already earned credits in.
You mentioned basketball. You were involved in that at Lindsey Wilson. Talk about some of the things you did outside of the classroom while a student.
Every day outside of class, we had practice 1:30 to 3:30. So there was that every single day. And then we would travel for games. And so it really taught me a lot of discipline and kind of holding myself to a set schedule when it came to balancing academics and athletics. And through Lindsey Wilson basketball, I was able to travel to Puerto Rico, Florida, and a number of other states for games, but those were the two that kind of stand out in my mind.
You've made reference to several of your professors here at the college. Talk a little bit more about what are the professors at Lindsey Wilson like in general, and then in the English program in particular?
Challenging in a good way. Dr. Steffens, I remember hearing like, oh, she's so scary, so scary. No, she's not. She is very challenging. She pushes you in the best way possible. Dr. Carr is the same way. Dr. Robertson would do anything for anybody. She sat down and helped me go over my resume for law school. Dr. Smith is the same way. I told you the story. I emailed Dr. Smith, Dr. Carr, and Dr. Steffens, heard back all from them immediately. They would do anything for their students. They are very passionate about what they're teaching, and I think that motivates students to really invest. And I think that that's something you don't get everywhere.
You said there's a lot of discussion in classes. Talk a little bit about that, how that adds to the experience in the classroom.
It's really interesting, and I think the word I keep coming back to is challenging, because it's easy to kind of coast sometimes in some courses, but that's just not the case when it comes to the English courses, because they want to hear your voice and they want to hear your opinion. I don't remember this. One of my professors told me that when I was a freshman, I would not talk. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a talker. I love to talk. And she said that in class, I would not really participate. And I think it was because I was intimidated. However, I do remember the day that I raised my hand and I answered a question and I covered my mouth immediately. They said that I turned blood red. I was embarrassed, and that the point I made was not only correct, it opened up a whole new conversation. And that was kind of like my eureka moment where I really felt like I belonged, because the points I made are good and they did contribute to the class. From that point on, I don't think I stopped talking in my classes.
You also not only discovered your major at Lindsey Wilson, but you found out what you're going to do after commencement, which was last December. I got the email about the commencement speech and I immediately forwarded it to Dr. Carr, and I was like, I think I want to maybe try this. And she encouraged me. I immediately got to work and I had them read over it. They thought it was good. I submitted it, and sure enough, I was selected. You said you really didn't participate a whole lot in classes when you first got here. You weren't even thinking about being a law student then, and now you're headed to law school. There was a fun activity we did in one of my courses. It was critical issues in women and gender studies, and we were acting out the Waxman hearings, and I got to be Henry Waxman. We wrote our own pieces, and I really got to play, because he was an attorney. He was also a representative. I got to be an attorney, and I had a few people, because we had people from the public sit in, and after the class, they came up to me and they're like, what are you going to do after college? I said, I want to be an attorney. They said, good choice. So, yes, sir. Had a pretty good experience at Lindsey Wilson, it sounds like. Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't change it for the world. And you couldn't have, if you would have told me that a few years ago, I would have laughed at you. And I really owe a great amount of thanks to the Adair County Attorney's Office and the staff there, Jennifer Hutchison Corbin, the Adair County Attorney, Gina Baker, Linda Tucker, Dana Edwards, Angela Cook, Barbara Shepard. Truthfully, I cannot thank them enough. They're phenomenal. And Jennifer Corbin, I say that she is an unrealistic example, because she makes it look so easy. She is amazing to work for, phenomenal at what she does, but she definitely gives me some high standards to live up to in my own career one day. So I can't thank them enough for everything they've done for me. And I want to say thank you to my family. I don't get to say it enough, but they do so much for me. They've supported me since day one, from me wanting to be an English teacher to now going to law school. Never missed any event. Truthfully, I have the best family, and I'm just so grateful for them.
That's Kylie Jackson. She's a December Lindsey Wilson College graduate, and she's one of 10 Lindsey Wilson folks presenting at this year's national meeting of Sigma Tau Delta, the International English Honor Society. Next fall, Kylie will be headed to law school. She's certainly one of the Blue Raiders to keep an eye on. And that's going to do it for this 10th edition of 2025's View from the Hill. View from the Hill is produced by my co-worker Shelby Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's assistant Director of Public Relations and Media Producer. And you can tell us what you like or you don't like about this podcast by firing off an email to us at news@lindsey.edu. Be sure to put podcast in the subject line. And also be sure to encourage your friends, family members, and neighbors to subscribe to A View from the Hill. This podcast is on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We wouldn't mind a single bit if you give us a nice rating on either or maybe both platforms. You can also find find this podcast on the college's YouTube channel. To get there, just go to youtube.com/LWC Public Relations and click on the podcast tab. Until our next edition, I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson College Office of Public Relations. Thanks so much for listening. So long, everybody, and have a nice day.